Tougen Anki episode 1. So, this anime is really cool. It's giving me a lot of Bleach vibes, at least me personally, and also a bit of Dead Man Wonderland vibes, kind of mixed in together. So, I think this one's main story is going to focus a bit on the lore of the Momotaro in Japan, but also it's its own kind of spin to it, where essentially the backstory to this anime is that the Oni race has been hunting and ruthlessly kind of killing humans until Momotaro came in and fought them off. So ever since that happened, the Oni race has kind of been at war with the Momotaro descendants for like thousands of years, and there hasn't been really a way to ease the conflict since then, and it's only just kept getting passed on from generation to generation, and that's how this anime kind of starts off with letting us know that side of things. But interesting enough, the our main character Shiki is part Oni, and in the beginning, the Momotaro agent kind of like picks him up after having slain probably one of either his father or like somebody at the scene, and decides to race him despite his junior kind of telling him that's a bad idea. Like only bring only spring disaster, and they're not they. It's nothing good can come from racing one. He'll turn on you, and he'll turn into a demon just like the rest of them would. But he decides to put that aside and raise him as his own son. So when we finally meet Shiki, like 15 plus years down the line, or he gets expelled from school because he's constantly fighting somebody, and the dad kind of comes in and starts lecturing him about why he keeps all these guns around the place, and don't you know that we have to run a business here, which they run like a liquor business or like a liquor store. And I said, then after a little bit, the same junior that told Shiki's dad not to take Shiki home with him decides to pay them a visit, being more battle scar, being having more battle scars, I should say, and decides to just, instead of waiting for Shiki to gain his actual powers, decides he's gonna go and take him out. Which at this time Shiki doesn't realize that he's part Oni. He just thought he was human, and him and his dad had a kind of like a falling out as this guy attacked them, or before this guy attacked them, and he kind of told his dad, like, like, I one of the things that I'm grateful for is the fact that we're not actually blood related, which just gets it, which is really interesting as the episode goes on, because despite him saying this, the father does save him from this Momotaro agent, and then they kind of have to go on the run, and even though like he hit him with his car, like the guy obviously deflected because of the Momotaro's power powers and how they work, and Shiki gets eventually captured by him, and is about to get an annihilated or sent off, and the father comes in and it's like, okay, well, it's time for the adults to kind of like handle things now, and it there was like such death flags to that, and the father does hold off his own for a bit, and we learned that these like black mists is how the Momotaro agents are able to fight off these Onis, and being even playing field, then because if not, like the Oni would just like run rampant. And the father tries to explain to Shiki while he's being hanged up, like, he's probably a Momotaro descendant. We have been at odds for one another for a while, and it's been really been like that for thousands of years. But just because we've been at odds doesn't mean that a innocent child deserves to die just for being born into an Oni. You haven't committed any crimes, so we shouldn't be punishing you for something you have not yet done. And, but we learn, interestingly enough, that Onis, just like Shiki, have blended into society and have become harder to track down because of that. And the Momotaro descendants obviously, or an agency, obviously have to also stay in hidden. They can't really go out in public and announce that they hunt Onis, as there's both of these seem to be kind of like secret organizations of their own. And despite Shiki's father's best efforts to try to beat his junior, it's just been too long, and since he retired and hasn't fought anybody, and this guy has been in constant battles. You can see that he has scars and very battle oriented. So he was able to take care of Shiki's dad, and Shiki wonders to himself like, "Am I? Is this it? Am I just gonna allow this guy to kill my father and not do anything about it?" And that's when his Oni powers start to awaken. Like, you love the animation of how his power started to awaken. It's like his eyes started get dripping blood, and then he just went on full demon mode at this guy. And he this is when we learn like the reason why the Momotoro's descendants have to keep battling on, is they fear that if they awakened like Shiki just did and can't really control themselves, they'll cause wreckage to humanity and to the world at large. But uh, despite this guy's best effort, Shiki just is able to use like Oni's abilities. Instead of these black mists that the Momotoros can use, they are able to manipulate blood. And funny enough, like, because of all the weapons we've seen Shiki have in his room, his Oni form has been able to produce these weapons through his blood, and he uses that against this Momotaro agent, and not necessarily overpowers him, but does give him a fair enough fight where it's not as one-sided. And eventually, he has him on the ropes, nearly about to annihilate him, and Shiki comes to his senses. So it seems this demon form or this Oni form completed kind of makes Shiki lose sight of everything, but also gains a tremendous power. So when he comes to his senses, he can't really defend himself, as he doesn't realize why or how he is able to do that, and or what happened even. So the Momotaro agent comes for his life once again, and Shiki's father gets in the way and gets pierced. And of course, that's like the father's last act, was to save his son. And then he tries to play off the, okay, these are my last words, so you need to listen to me carefully. He's like, no. He's like, you have to get stronger, strong enough that nobody can take away your freedom. Not the Momotoros, not the Onis. You need to be strong enough to defend yourself and defend your own happiness, which is a really powerful message. Like, probably in this world, like, power, the amount of power you have will determine the amount of happiness you have, and also will determine what you can protect to keep that happiness. So I really like that was supposed to be his last words, but Shiki tried to be like, nope, that's not gonna be your last words. I refuse to accept them. I'm taking you to a hospital. You're gonna be good as new afterwards. And it's like, don't you dare die on me. And unlike Shiki, his father cannot recover from his wound enough, and he does end up dying. And that his last wish, instead of Shiki being stronger, is, I hope one day Momotaro descendants and Oni descendants can stand side by side instead of actually fighting one another. And such a powerful message just wanting unity instead of conflict. But the overall part that really made it saddening is the fact that Shiki now realized that the one of the last conversations before his father passed away was the fact that he rejected his father because they weren't blood related. But meanwhile, his father, despite not being blood related, despite him being an Oni, despite everything else, never rejected him. So that hurt probably Shiki a lot more. The fact that the father was always so much more accepting of him than he was ever accepting of his own father before his passing. And then afterwards, somebody has to kind of interrupt Shiki from mourning his father, and it's another Oni that just suddenly appears and knocks him out. So we have Oni organization kind of like forming on one side, and then we get a bit of the higher ups from the Momotaro agency. It seems like these are like the oldest people, and they run the whole operation. And they're talking about how Momotaro agency has gotten weak throughout the years, and that if nothing is done, the Oni that are coming, that are in hiding, are gonna completely overpower them. So they have to get rid of them as soon as possible. And then we get that not only is Shiki one of these Oni that's probably gonna join the secret organization, but the Onis have their own school where they teach Onis how to grow and get accustomed to their powers, which Shiki's gonna probably have to apply to and learn how to control his powers better, so that he never has to go berserk again and never has to forget what happened during that stage. So I am really enjoying this anime from what I've seen in this first episode. I'm gonna keep looking forward to covering it. And episode 1, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.